It's another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. But before we get into it, are you subscribed? If not, please make sure to subscribe, like and share the video and spread the word. Because the Christian Reeve podcast is here to stay. I love doing this and I love all of you that support me. So thank you. And yeah, let's get into this podcast, shall we? Boom! Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is a founder and CEO of Work Services. I was going to say surfaces for a second. Work Services. And he's the co-founder of Runtime Consulting as well. His name is Xander Kazanowski. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show. Let's jump into Work Surfaces. I don't know why I'm struggling with that today. Yes, Work Surfaces. Tell us why you sort of set this company up and what kind of services you provide.
Yeah, the freedom for myself and for others. It's why I do what I do. I mean, there's a million easier ways to make money than to build a platform like this. And if it was just about the money, I would have done that, But we're building something that's truly awesome. We get people paid for doing what they love on their free time. And it's truly powerful because some kid can be working at like Tacos El Norte and then go move a couch after his 8-hour shift. It only takes him 15 minutes to move the couch and he just doubled his daily income. And that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, because it's essentially, if I've understood it correctly, like the business model is, selling your services. It could be anything from a complex task to something really simple, like, I don't know, mowing someone's garden or something very simple like that. I've actually seen this business model in other countries because I spent some years abroad in Europe and I saw a very similar model, but it wasn't like one specific company. It was just lots of companies or people, individuals charging for it. And it's, I suppose this kind of comes under the gig economy kind of platform or work model, so to speak. But I'm interested to kind of know, like, where do you think this is likely to sort of head in the future? Because when I was looking at this, I think I kind of saw that it had like a lot of legs on it. And it's definitely something that I'm surprised we haven't offered really sooner. I mean, I can't really speak for the UK. I think we have something like this, but I don't think we've ever had like a one particular company set this up. So like, where do you think it's headed?
Yeah, so we're looking to be the guys, the anytime someone needs a service, they're going to think of us because we're going to be the most credible and we're going to be the platform with the greatest people and the greatest prices. And we're going to be the closest thing to a perfectly competitive labor market as possible. And if we can do all these things and reduce the inefficiencies of, massive organizations and administration, managerial stuff, and just get people paid for doing what they're best at, and we handle all the rest. That's how we know we're going to find success. Our app comes out in about a week.
Cool.
Actually, I think tomorrow. And so we're going to be jamming on that. And we're just looking to build. And that's what the next year is going to entail, figuring out what the people want and giving it to them. And we know that if we build it and it's hyper usable and we can get people paid, they'll come and we'll expand.
So talk us through the app a little bit, like what kind of features can people come to expect on there and how is it more useful, let's say, than just using your browser or something like that?
Yeah, so the cool thing is we're going to be a lot more able to individualize your experience. So we're going to have a lot greater means of like tailoring the platform to you. And so basically we'll be able to get a lot of points, what you are, who you are, like what your desires are and how we can assist you. And then that way we'll also be able to build a better just referral and rewards programs, so we can have a better ongoing relationship with our customers.
So is there going to be a bit of like affiliate marketing here then? Like if people sign on, they get kind of, I mean, you mentioned rewards and stuff like that. So I imagine it's kind of sort of B2B style, if you give us X amount of business, then we'll, I don't know, cut down on these fees or give you this offer. Like talk us through some of those benefits.
Yeah,
like, what can people
we're
expect?
Definitely going to do some very interesting things when it comes to like influencer marketing and whatnot, and having the proper channels to get the eyeballs that we're looking for. But when it comes to something like lead generation, we do have a sales team that's like quite small, but when it comes down to it, what we're looking to do is we're going to pump all of our money into making the most optimal platform, because we're not looking to get all fancy with it unless it's super usable. So once we start having something that's usable, we know that we can drive traffic, and we know that if we provide something valuable, people are going to come and extract value from it and stay around.
Now, you guys are based in Chicago, if I've understood that correctly. Is that right? Okay, so it's
Yep.
available like all around the state of Chicago. But what I'm really interested in is, do you have plans to kind of make this national and potentially international as well? Because I can certainly see this being a model that, you know, would easily be, let's say, transferable given the right setup. But yeah, what are your immediate plans for that? Is it just you're going to focus on the Chicago market for now, or do you have some immediate plans to move it national in the next few years?
We have plans to go to Bryan and College Station in Texas, and then right after we're going probably into Dallas, Austin. Then we're going to go into Colorado Springs and then hit up Denver. And what we plan on doing is going just outside these cities. That's what we did in Chicago. We were in the northwest suburbs. Now we've been able to push across the suburbs, push into the city. And we're going to do something very similar when it comes to these other cities. And it's going to fix our seasonality issue. But we also have like online services, remote and other stuff. But during COVID and with the weather like this, we've been able to just like have to survive by doing the odds and ends that we could, like painting and snow removal and whatnot. But once we're in a new market like Texas, where we don't have the seasonality issue, it's just going to be a lot better with easing our cash flows and to having a more consistent month to month. So that we're definitely looking to expand. We're going to bring the platform everywhere over time. We're rolling it out. Any market that will legally allow us to operate, we look to be in soon.
What would you say are the benefits for using your services versus, say, I know this isn't exactly a competitor, but you do have, websites online like, say, Freelancer, TrueLancer, etc., right? And obviously they're offering, purely remote services, things like marketing, sales, blah, 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 blah. Why should people use your service versus using those more, well-known, more established, bigger brands? Like, what's the benefit of using the platform?
So number one is we don't sell leads. We connect people, and then we take a little bit on top. So basically, we don't get paid until the deal manifests, until the freelancer or the business gets paid themselves. So we will quote a project, say it's a painting gig, $5,000, and the contractor's content at doing it for $3,800. Everyone's happy. The client's expectations are met. Work has made a few bucks to, keep building into the future, and the contractor's getting paid. And the contractor doesn't have to do all the nonsense. He doesn't have to, like, even a lot of times when there's these bigger companies, they're selling leads. That's all they're doing is they're selling leads. So now you got to go chase them down. Sometimes they're expired, they're old. And in the beginning days, I wanted to test out this stuff. And literally, I think I spent like $800 and I got nothing, just nothing in return. It was absurd. And I just kept getting stale leads, wasting a lot of time. So what basically we operate is a screenshot. It's a booking form. Someone has booked, they've requested, an estimate time, whatever, and it's the address, phone number, contact information. They're ready. It's no nonsense. And
Okay. Hypothetically, what safeguards are in place? Let's say I set up on your platform and let's say I'm a buyer, but I've bought a service and, this person's taken my money and then nothing. Like what would you sort of do to help me in that situation?
Yeah, so we would cover your loss right away. And that's something that we do that differentiates ourselves from our competitors. And that's happened to us. I was going to see Denver and I left for about 6 days. 16-year-old kid decides that he became a plumber when I was gone. And, he took a booking when the system was closed. You can claim any job back then. And yeah, he just did a lot of damage, cost me a lot of money. But, we came in, we fixed that right away. And, it's just a lesson learned. And that's the thing. Like, we know that there's going to be problems and there's going to be expensive problems. But what's more expensive than short-term problems is long-term problems with your customer satisfaction. Because if you don't make your clients happy, then you're not going to have clients. If you don't have clients, you don't have a business.
I agree completely. But playing devil's advocate, can your business really sustain that if it happens like a lot? I'm not saying that like it's obviously going to happen all the time, but there are people that are out there to exploit and scam and stuff. And
yeah, well, that's the thing. It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us wanting to have the best actors on our platform, because any bad actors are going to cost us a lot of money. So we want to remove them as soon as possible. And that will leave us with only the cream of the crop, only the most highest quality service providers. And that's what we're going to be jamming with. We have, like, over time, it takes time to figure out who's good at what. So say you need a plumber, but you only need a plumber every 10 years. We know a plumber that can do great work, but most people probably don't. So that's what it comes down to. We can dispatch, delegate the responsibilities, get him paid for doing what he's great at, and have that person's needs met.
And give us like a rough, overall overview of the types of services that people can get on your website.
Anything in that, so basically any service that an individual or business can offer, you'll be able to purchase on our site in the coming months. So we're adding everything, both in person and remote. We're going to maybe stay away from the professional stuff for now, like, legal advice and accounting and whatnot, but that might be a different group. That might be the consulting organization that does more of that. But literally anything you can think of, in the beginning days, we were cleaning cat shit out of litter boxes and, scraping windows. So it's just like, do what you can with what you have where you are. And we know that the individual, if we give them the platform to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, they'll be able to do that. Because I've seen it happen, and it's so powerful when you see someone rise like that.
Absolutely. What would you say are your kind of like overall goals and aspirations for this company, just in general? Let's forget time for a second. Like, what are the main things you're wanting to achieve with it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the guys that come with me and build this thing with me. I'm looking to, bestow help them unleash the same degree of freedom that I have. The freedom to just kind of wake up and do whatever I want. And obviously it's going to be work services because it's what I'm passionate about. But if I wanted to wake up and, go walk around aimlessly for 20 hours, I could. And that feeling is unlike no other. Like, a man's a success if he can wake up in the morning and do what he wants to do. And I want to help a lot of people become very successful.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, let's talk about Runtime Consulting. So this is a different company. Is it connected in some way, or have you just kept it separate and then you're going to link them later?
Yeah, so basically the guys who built my team or the guys who built my a lot of our online presence and a lot of our site and social media, they're on the team for Runtime. Basically, we built all this stuff and we come in contact with a lot of cool things, but we don't need them all the time, but we want to continue to hook them up with gigs. So say a guy comes in, he needs to embed an API, say he's only with us for 2 weeks, but he's awesome and he's great what he does. I want to bring him more opportunities. I don't really have them internally, but I can find a ton of people who need stuff and I'm got great guys who can do things. So I figured, why don't we do something very similar when it comes to just making things happen. So when it comes to web dev or a web presence, I was living in my car and eventually couches and then eventually my car when I was building my site. So we really know how to like build and make things with like a bootstrap budget. And it's awesome because like we've got the most effective spend. So someone comes in and they're like, my last guy's charging me $2,500. Dude, we can come and we get the same results for $700. And it's just awesome.
How long ago was this when you were kind of struggling a little bit? Like how many years ago was this?
Oh no, it wasn't even years ago, man.
Recent.
3 months ago. I was living.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was interesting. I dropped out of school and I just really I didn't like where I was at. I was studying the words of others, couldn't be creative, and oftentimes the professors were just blatantly wrong. Like they would say something and it would be the opposite of the truth. I was like, all right, I got to get out of here. And so I dropped out and I had no money. I had $7. And I started playing some poker. And I ended up having $60, and then I started doing odd jobs and just grinding it out. Now I got a couple apartments, couple businesses, and it just comes down to whether or not you want it. You can do anything you want with the limited time we have here.
I was gonna say that's quite a short space of time. So we're talking 3 months ago. You're now at this position. Like, what's been the major change or shift in that period? Is it just like a lot of clients and as you say, you build on top of that, or like what's been the major difference, the major change?
Yeah, the iteration. I think that just the fact that time has passed and it's given us more time to iron out our systems and figure out who we are and truly what value we provide. And then it's just crank and go from there, because basically when we build our site, we build our funnels, then we get one customer. We don't just get one customer. We get that customer over the span of their life and that entire person's network. And it's not just for the service they booked. We can cross-sell them on all of our services. So it's been we've been able to utilize that network effect and grow tremendously quick. And actually too quick. At a certain time, we're getting too many bookings to satisfy all of them. It was like, this is a good problem to have.
Absolutely. So what exactly is your role at Runtime Consulting? Because as I understand, yeah, like your services is your main sort of thing, but this is like a co deal. So what are your main responsibilities there? How does it differ?
Yeah, so I'm out here trying to find people who need stuff that we're capable of doing for them, and then meeting those expectations at the best rate. So basically, someone comes to me, and it's been cool. I've been having really awesome conversations with guys who are building really cool things, and that's part of the reason why I did. I love the startup domain, and we're corporating up. We're building work into a more legitimized. But I love the beginning phases. So part of the reason, or probably the main reason why I ended up doing this, because I need to be back at the start. And so helping people, get up in the air and get going is the main thing in what I do. I'm having a lot of conversations, figuring out what people need. And we've got great guys when it comes to web dev and marketing and all that. So just kind of like showing them what the client wants, and then, managing the project through, or, delegating the responsibility of someone to manage the project. And yeah, we're just looking to basically do things a lot better through a better perspective of someone who has done this for the lowest, for cheap. No one can do what we've done for the price at which we've done it for, and that's powerful. And like we've learned all these little things, all these little growth hack moments that are essentially free, but they just take the time. So if we can get the processes down for these companies, and then hire out, utilize the underutilized, maybe the undergrads that are extremely knowledgeable in these domains, but they're not as valuable when it comes to an hourly. People 20 an hour, and they can do great things, and they're entirely remote. Everyone's content, and more than content.
So what's your vetting process for consultants? Because from what it sounds like, they're not working directly for you, they're working like with you, but obviously you have to kind of look at like, well, is this person good enough? Like, what are they offering? Etc. Like, so
Yeah,
how do you decide that?
Basically, in the beginning, we only have a few clients right now. So we've got about three clients right now. So my team consists of everyone who's done things for me. So that's basically the vetting process. Is like, I know that what they can do because they've done it, not too long ago for me specifically. But when it comes to finding other talent, that's going to be an interesting thing. And what I might do is I might have them do something, or figure out, some sort of thing for either me or someone I'm close to, so that maybe if something does go wrong, it's not as a serious thing than if it was a legitimate. So if I'm testing someone out,
right,
we'll dip our toes in the water before we just jump in and say, here's a $50,000 web development. Go ahead and do it. Like, so it comes down to
that's sensible.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder, actually. I remember I worked for one company, and because I've always been involved in the marketing of companies, that's more my area. And it really frustrated me because, they were this big international company, so money wasn't an issue. And, let's say I wanted some basic copywriting content services. In the industry, some companies charge a lot. I mean, there's companies that charge anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per article. It's crazy.
Damn.
But this is the thing, like, because I do freelance writing myself, and I charge a very low rate just based on experience, and because I've only been doing it like 2 or 3 years now. But I also kind of try and be fair with it. But I've kind of understood over the years that like the price is very reflective of the quality that is being delivered, right? And I sort of experienced that the hard way when I was in that role, because for whatever, it wasn't my decision, but our team decided to get like really cheap freelance writers. And my God, that's the thing. I was the editor at the time. So we received this stuff in, and I had to fix it. And I was like, this just isn't worth the time. I was like, I'll be better off doing this. So it's good. It's good that you do that you vet that. That's very important.
We're definitely looking for some blog content too. That's something we've been blasting recently. So we should keep in contact when it comes to that.
Yes, hit me up. I need work. But this isn't about me. Moving it on. In your opinion, how important is social media for modern business, and why? Now, I know this is a really obvious question to ask, but the reason I'm asking it is because I like to get a very specific response from someone who's actually doing it. Like, I know the importance of social media, so do you, but maybe our audience doesn't know, people that aren't involved. So tell us why it's so important in this day and age.
Yeah, it's everything. The reach is everything. If you can just go out and spew your mission, your people are going to come to you. You're not going to have to actively seek them out. Back in the day, you had to run around, you had to talk to people, you had to shake their hands, you had to say, who are you? You know, do you belong in my organization? Now they come to you. They run to you. They say, damn, dude, I see what you're up to, and I fucking want that for myself and my people. Like, how can I do it? And then if you're out here providing value, you're going to get that back times 10. And a lot of people are too worried about, oh, you know, maybe I'll expend the slightest bit of effort and then it won't come back to me immediately. It's like, well, you know, go out there and inspire, and these people will come to you in droves.
I think that's a generational thing as well, because like our generation, the generation before us, I would feel kind of understand that like things don't just, you know, happen like that in life. It takes some time, you know, just to let things sit and then grow out of it. Like, for instance, I've been doing this podcast since let's say July of last year, and it's very slowly beginning to turn into something, but it takes time. Like I think it'll take a couple of years probably before it really it turns into something, but that's good. That's what you want, because I think you need to like learn lessons over time, and also I think it just takes time to kind of perfect the right model, the right approach, whatever the case may be. And yeah, it's the same is true of social media. I mean, like when I first started using social media, I did it a particular way. One of the biggest lessons I learned is that every single platform has a totally different approach. So like, let's say like Twitter and Reddit are better for connecting with people and like networking, whereas, you know, Facebook is good for just throwing content out there. I don't know why, but it just gets views apparently if you just use loads of hashtags. And then things like YouTube is interesting because it's like, you know, everyone talks about this algorithm like it's the holy grail, but it doesn't necessarily work that way for every creator. It's like, you know, but there is even an SEO element to that, and which is quite interesting. But yeah, obviously I completely agree with you. It's very important. It's made life a whole lot easier. But one thing I do want to add to this, which I think you sort of touched on, but I think is very important, is that a lot of people are very scared about, you know, oh, I need to go for like a standard job. I need to work for a company. I need to do this, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you something. I've got a degree in 3 years worth of experience. And I've said this before to my listeners, but maybe not everyone on the podcast knows. You know, I've been unemployed for the last year, and I've just been like freelancing and putting all my time in this. And I can tell you that most of the companies that I speak to on a daily basis about potentially working there are clueless. You know, they just don't understand what's really important in marketing. They're like, oh, you know, you need 5 years experience, and you need experience with this PPC and this Facebook advertising and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, do you know what? That's all great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that stuff is actually useful for your specific company. And like whenever I come into a new company, or anytime I work with a new client, the first thing I do is go, what's your setup? Like, what tools are we using? What's the formatting? Blah, blah, blah. Because if you don't do that, you can't kind of figure out what to do. And just because something worked, you know, for a different industry, a different company that you work with, doesn't mean it's going to work for this new one. Like, you have to approach it with a fresh slate each time. So yeah, I don't know. I think there is a little bit of growth. Some people are beginning to, you know, wake up and smell the coffee, but there's still a lot of people caught in the old ways of marketing that think, oh, this is how it is, and that's how it is. And
it's like all these opportunities have been so arbitraged out that it's the non-traditional routes that are really going to give you the greatest bang for your buck. It's going to be the content marketing. It's going to be just you providing value and collecting traffic, and not for the pure, you know, throwing up, oh, this is our offer, but just showing people who you are, what you're about, what you can do, and then they'll do actionable steps. And I think that's what we're headed, and that's what a lot of companies will see. You know, Facebook ads will be a thing of the past, shorter than we realize.
I think it already is. You know, every time I've used Facebook ads, both on a corporate level or for personal uses, it never works, and they screw you. You know, I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record for my listeners because I've complained about Facebook before, but do you know, in the past year, here's something interesting, right? I've been sort of experimenting with Facebook. I don't take it as seriously, but I have kind of noticed that you need to put content on there. It's like, it's a waste if you don't. You might as well use the platform. But I've noticed that there's been massive organic growth on some of the content, and I can't really explain why. The only thing I can say is that I think it comes down to the hashtag thing that I mentioned. But every time I use Facebook ads, pretty much every time they do the same thing. Like if you lay out a 7-day ad campaign, for example, they'll spend your money in the last 3 days really ineffectively, and they might not even necessarily use the full amount, and they won't work. It won't give you anything, because what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to get leads. That's what you want: clicks and leads, and or conversions. Sorry, that's what you really want. But that won't necessarily happen, because while they might be trying to, give you those leads, that doesn't mean that they'll be good leads or what you're actually looking for. And that's the frustrating thing about Facebook and Facebook ads. I think, as you said, I think it already is a thing of the past. I think it's just a matter of time before they just close it and go, okay, let's put our money in something else. But hey ho.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's just gonna be a lot better routes. When it comes to it, organic traffic is it. And the paid reach is, paid reach is something that the Titans will use till the end of time. The guys who have $1 billion, they'll come in and they'll throw 10, 20 million into stuff like this, no problem. They'll be shown to a lot of people, but guess what? They're all competing with each other. So it's gonna be less effective as time goes by, and it's gonna be so expensive. It's not gonna be worth it in the slightest. Like you're saying right now, that could be the case.
Yeah, it's weird to me. I mean, with Facebook, they do everything they can to try and hide your organic reach, hide your traffic. Like they did a thing about 5 or 10 years ago where if you have a Facebook page, they try and do the thing where they kind of like hide you from the results so that people can't see you, and you have to like click and say like, oh, I'm actually following this page, and then you can see the stuff. Like they know what they're doing, and it's their website. They can do what they want, but it just means that if you're a business owner or content creator, or you're trying to do anything, then you're just less likely to want to do anything with Facebook. So they're just shooting themselves in the foot. But with what you were saying about ad spend, I mean, if you take like a company like Coca-Cola, and they spend like hundreds of millions every year on advertising, and like on one hand, I kind of get it in the sense that like, it keeps their name out there. I mean, Coca-Cola is everywhere, it's still very popular. It's drunk by everyone, even though we know that it's really bad for you, but then so many other things are in life. But at the same time, I do wonder about that. I'm like, well, if you would just half that or stop spending as much, like people aren't just going to forget about Coke. But then again, maybe they will over time. You don't know. Like I almost feel like they're caught in their own circle. Like if they stop, then there's a risk. If they keep doing it, there's the risk of financial.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's so delayed. Yeah, the results, you won't really know the results until the future. So it's like if you stop doing something now, maybe it's like fine, and it means you're saving money, but maybe it means you're cutting into your sales, and that won't be able to be decided until the numbers come in. And that's like the thing is like trying to make decisions to keep things going steady in the present and in the future. I think that's like to have foresight and have the ability to still be actionable in the moment. That's what like distinguishes like true innovative leader and like another schmuck who's just a boring manager. Like that, you gotta have that forward looking and even if you're wrong, just having that perspective that this is something we're building towards into the future, and we're not just worried about maintaining what we have now. I think that's just people around you can see that, they can sense it, and if you think and breathe it, others will follow.
Well, one last thing on just what we're talking about, I think that is important, is that it's all about branding, and like with Coca-Cola, say what you want about them spending crazy amounts of money, but they're always putting that money into the branding, creating a story. That's why they're so successful, because whenever you watch a Coca-Cola advert, it has nothing to do with a Coke. They probably won't even say, here's a Coke. It'll be like, oh, we're spreading our message of happiness and, blah, 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 blah. And it works. It really does. But with Facebook, I mean, they've only just started in the last couple of years to do Facebook advertising, as in a televised advert on the television, which blows my mind. I mean, the company's been around since like what, 2004?
Yeah,
I mean, and it's like people go, oh, why are they not making as much money as they could? Why are they not worth more? And it's because of stuff like that. They spend all their time and efforts on the system itself, which is important. And maybe they don't care. I mean, they probably earn so much from ad revenue that they don't give two shits. But at the same time, it's like,
they're platforms like that. It's the same thing. Like I was saying, they're too worried about maintaining, and they're not focused on building. Like if Facebook is going to die, right? And the reason why they're going to die is because they're spending money on lobbyists and trying to push back on change rather than push forward on it. And it's like, you're not going to go anywhere if you try to fight what's going on. And it's like, you gotta keep up with the times. Not even that, spearhead it. Like, what I see is social media platforms like Snapchat, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, all these little niches. They're just gonna take Facebook and they're gonna fucking rip it apart. They're gonna tear them into their each component. There's gonna be a messenger app that's not Facebook. There's gonna be photo sharing app that isn't Instagram, and it's just, people don't like authoritarian dictators, and it's as simple as that. Zuckerberg's being a dictator. And, I think that the free people of the world will get together and say enough is enough. We're done with it. And that's going to happen. And I think it's going to be pretty powerful to see.
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. As we've speaking today, I just saw it's trending on Twitter that Bebo is going to make a comeback, if you remember what Bebo is. I'll just explain for those listening that probably a bit too young. So before Facebook and before MySpace, if you remember that, there was Bebo. Bebo was one of the first. I think there was a few others, Fiverr, a bunch of I don't know, whatever crap ones. They're probably, I don't know if they're still around, but Bebo was like the very, very first, and it died a relative death a few years back, and it just wasn't as popular, but it was okay. MySpace did it better, and then they died. But the guy Tom Anderson who sold it was laughing because he sold it at the peak of the popularity, and then they destroyed the website. And then he was like, "Well, I got my millions, so I don't care." And then obviously Zuckerberg sort of took over with Facebook. And this is why I kind of partially agree. Although the thing about Facebook is that it's had such a long stronghold and it's such a big part of society now that I don't know necessarily that you could altogether get rid of it. Although maybe, as you say, more companies might come in and get a market share. That's definitely plausible.
People will still use their Facebook account to log into stuff, but they're not going to be using it to communicate with family members or friends or classmates. There's going to be other stuff for that. But they might use the stuff that isn't as important. But when it comes to data protection, they're at button heads with Apple right now, and it's not something that the consumer would really want to be involved in. Like, as a guy who maybe does like a lot of stuff on the internet, that if people had access to it, they could use it to their advantage to maybe compete with us or whatever, and other stuff. But it's hard to trust, especially it's hard to trust a faceless organization like Facebook, and especially with a leader like Zuckerberg. He has the power to basically silence people at will. He can just say this person no longer gets reach, and it's kind of hard when someone has that much power. So that's why there's going to have to be competition among social media platforms. Otherwise, there's going to be no free speech.
It's interesting that you brought up free speech, because obviously recently, they made the decision to block Donald Trump off all social media platforms. And, I made a quick video about it, but, I wasn't really sure where I sit on the debate, because on one hand, is it good to silence this guy? He talks a lot of shit. A lot of the shit that he talks about riles people and it causes bad stuff in society. So on that sense, it's good. But on the other sense,
I don't think it makes any sense to silence the leader of the free world. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, you can disagree with his words, but in the end, like, he is the most powerful person on the planet, and you're gonna say, okay, he no longer gets this reach to contact these people directly. So now you're saying that he has to go through the media. So even if you don't agree with what he's saying, you should be able to access that information so that you know what he's saying. But if you say that, okay, you can't have this social media where you can directly communicate with your audience, now you're gonna have to go through these fucking, everyone knows how the media is. They're liars, they're cheaters, they're thieves. They get paid off by certain organizations, political parties. So it's like, well, now we're gonna get this skewed information, and it's like, you should always, unless someone's literally inciting anything, basically saying like, oh, let's go and like rob people or kill them or directly cause harm. Like, if there's a direct threat to an individual or group of people, then perhaps maybe you start to discuss taking away their privileges. But when it comes down to silencing the leader of the free world on every single platform, I think that's just egregious. And I think that's just it kind of shows you that there's scary times that we're in, and if it gets trendy, the fact that every single platform basically did this shows you that they're all in cahoots, and that's not a good sign at all.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I've actually, I received what they call a community strike on YouTube for discussing. I think it was it that QAnon thing, and that conspiracy theory thing with
What
Trump.
were you talking? What was the topic? What were you saying?
It was literally QAnon and Donald Trump, and basically it was a short clip that was taken from a podcast that I had with another guest. Now, I reviewed it again because you talk about a lot of stuff in 2 hours, so I couldn't remember what I said. But basically, I looked it over, and we were just literally, it was just like, oh, I don't really know much about this, and the other guy explains, and then I say, oh, here's what I know, and then that's basically it. And they they blocked the clip and gave me a strike, and they put it on under harassment and cyberbullying. And this is the thing. Now, going back to what you said before, while I don't agree in supporting, hatred and all of these things in society, I think it's much better to not support that person, not to fully block them, but to not support them. Like, for example, if someone is a racist, like openly in society, what happens? People challenge them, or people just don't follow them, cancel them, whatever. That seems like a much better approach than trying to impede on free speech, because I've said this before in previous videos, that once you start saying what people can and can't say, that's a slippery road, because eventually it's going to get to an extreme point where we literally cannot say anything. Like us just talking about something, it's just a conversation. Who the fuck are we? Why do people care? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Why is it such a big problem? Why do you have
ideas are dangerous? Ideas are dangerous to the status quo, to the people who don't want things to be changed. And then when you start to realize, like, and I've read a lot of basically just atrocities of history, and you see this, the individual gets demonized, and basically the ability to speak is the first thing to go, because when you can't speak, then you can't defend your thoughts and ideas, and if you can't defend your thoughts and ideas, it's easy for you to be vilified, it's easy to be demonized. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, hey, look at these creators. These people, oh, they're not creators. They're actually thieves. They're stealing from you. They're taking your productive value, this or that. And then they'll say, oh, if you try to speak out against these people in the media, guess what? You can't speak out against them because whatever, we got compelled speech laws that say that you can't speak out against these government programs, or you can't speak out against this person or whatever, because it's dangerous or you're causing issues. And it's like, well, no one has the right to police my tongue but my own mind, and that's what it comes down to. And that's, like, as an American, that's something that I'm willing to fight for, and it's something that's slipping, and it's we see it happening every day, not only in the cancel culture, but literally legislations are being drafted in up in Canada. There's literally compelled speech laws. You can be fined, you can be thrown into prison for saying words that other people don't like. And it's like, for that to happen here in America, I'm sorry, but that will never happen. Because if you try to take the our First Amendment away, you're basically saying that we have no rights. And then if you say that, then guess what? Bullets are flying, because there's certain lines that you cannot cross. And it's like, people that advocate for doing away with free speech or doing away with the ability to defend yourself, they're advocating for a bloodbath. They're advocating for blood on the streets. They're advocating for neighbors killing neighbors. Because if you're going to say, you can't say these things, well, I'm sorry, I can. And I'm going to do things to protect not only my interest when it comes to liberty, but the interest of my descendants and my kids' kids, because I was granted the freedom to live in such a land, to build such crazy shit. And there's no way in hell I'm going to hand over the torch of liberty, burnt out. And it seems like that's what we're going to do in this next generation. And it's quite disgusting to see that no one seems to really care, that we just kind of let it happen.
See, that's where I disagree with you a little bit. I feel like, many people are complacent and they don't necessarily act, but I don't think a lot of people necessarily know what's going on. Like, for example, if we see what's going on in the stock markets right now with the hedge fund and there's a GameStop hedge fund, and it's basically Reddit versus Wall Street, right? Now, the thing is, like, I had to look into, because I know a little bit about trading, but I didn't understand fully what was going on. Now I've understood perfectly. And
you understand the media's narrative of what's going on. That's not actually what's going on, though. That's the thing.
No, this is the thing. well, the media is full of shit. We know this, but what's actually happening is, and it's under trading, because the trading industry is massively regulated. It's one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world. And it should be, because over the years, traders have tried all sorts of things, things like insider trading. And still to this day, they try to do that. And that should be illegal. It's not fair. If you look at it as a competitive sport, just for argument's sake, it would be the same as like someone taking performance enhancing drugs. It's the same principle. It should be, everyone should have a level playing field, right? Now, what those Redditors did is they decided, we're going to buy up on this hedge fund a lot. And that will mean is that it's going to affect those Wall Street people, and they're going to lose a lot of money in that. That's the crux of what has happened. But as you said, the media is spinning it a different way. And now somehow the government is getting involved. And now I'm looking at the situation like, this should be eye-opening for everyone. This should show you exactly the sort of problems that we have that are inherent in society. Because like trading is a very clear thing. If and Robinhood, the app, blocked people's ability to keep buying on that. And that tells you everything you need to know. Why are they blocking it? Why can't we buy anymore? Nothing is, the law has not been broken. It's just affecting certain people in society, and those people are protected by certain organizations, governments, etc. And that's the problem. That's what they don't want you to know.
Yeah,
and that's always
they act as if capitalism is the issue. It's like, we don't, here in America and here literally anywhere in the world, capitalism is not even occurring. It is all crony. It's all bullshit. It is all, you got to have your money in this government man's pocket to get this contract or this and that. And it's so inefficient. And there's all of this nonsense going on. And it's actually the exact opposite of a free market. And people blame the markets when the markets solve everything. The markets will lead to efficiency. The problem arises when you have these bad eggs that are taking bribes, that are taking, the lobbyists that are pushing through these things. And it's like, this is not in the best interest of the people. This isn't the best interest of your constituents. Like, guess what? If we find someone who is corrupt these days, we don't tar and feather them. We don't pour boiling oil on them, humiliate them, and drag them through the streets. We just, give them a slap on the back and say, hey, man, run for office next year and we'll elect you. And it's like the biggest fear a politician should have is screwing over his constituents. So, because he should fear going home at night and his house is on fire because he stole from someone. Because like what it comes down to is there's a certain line. Like there's, from time to time, the blood of the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of tyrants. And there's a lot of tyrants right now. There's a lot of tyrants, especially here in Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, is shutting down the economy, increasing taxes, and then she's just running around like just screwing people left and right. And she claims power that basically, she's probably been elected in faulty ways. And there's corruption that runs since the beginning of this city. And it's just disgusting to see these people don't do anything. They're parasites. Everyone in government is a parasite. And they're like, we're the hosts and they're feasting off of our blood. And it sucks, because if we were to keep all of our income and the government were to see a dime, the world would be a much better place. A much better place.
What do you make of Dogecoin?
I think any alternative means of transaction other than the United States dollar or any of the banking industry, I think it's good, because the less that they can see, the less transparency when it comes to the U.S. government being able to audit individuals and see where funds are going, the better. I don't know Dogecoin specifically. I know that it's kind of like a meme stock, and that's probably why it's surging. There's cryptos and whatnot.
Yeah, so what's happened with it is originally it started as you say, like a meme, a joke kind of thing, but because of everything that's happening and what they're trying to do with the markets, everyone's decided to just buy in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I've always wanted to get involved with cryptocurrency, because that's the future, people. If you're not realizing that now, I don't know how to help you, but sometime in the next 20 to 50 years, you're going to see currencies go, and things like cryptocurrency be the new, form of.
That's my next
currency.
startup. We're going to do a really cool thing. We're going to be tokenizing equity in startups so that they can do micro distributions of shares. So you can tip your intern in $2 worth of shares, or whatever, and you can do vested interest over time and not have to have an expensive stock option program, not have to be a publicly traded, and not have to have accredited investors to come in and purchase up. Someone doesn't have to have 100 grand; they can have $100, and they can come in and they buy a portion of your company. And rather than raising debt, you can you could sell equity, and that way you're not putting yourself at any long-term risk when it comes to having to meet the needs of the debt and whatnot. And you can always buy back the shares or whatever. So that's something we're looking towards building too. But I think crypto is just like going to be the platform for everything when it comes down to blockchain and just kind of that sort of vibe of things. I think as people figure out its place in society, it will just take over everywhere it belongs, and it'll come fast.
Yeah, there's companies that I've worked with that use blockchain as a system in order to facilitate their stuff. So there was one company I worked with that basically, as I understand, they had some sort of it's like KYC verification system. So what that means is if you're involved with professional trading, it's a way of sort of verifying if how can I put this? What's the name? Brokers are, reputable or not, if you should work with them, blah, blah, blah. And you have them all within this one platform, and you can sort of verify that. So what this company was actually doing was using blockchain in order to facilitate that particular system, which just blew my mind. Like, I understand it on a basic level, but the capability of that is amazing, particularly in terms of security. Like you said, these companies like Facebook, Google, they have all our data. For me, I'm kind of forced to use these platforms as being a content creator. If I had an option, I would certainly use it. And I do, as much as I can. I try to put my stuff on as many platforms as possible and try and do it that way. But it's the main platforms, the ones that everyone are on and everyone consumes, are unfortunately owned by these companies. So going back to what we were originally saying before, with these new niche companies, I think everyone is going to start to embrace them more once they understand what is actually going on and what's possible with like blockchain and cryptocurrency and all of these other different things. It's more about understanding. If you have the information and you know how it works and you know the potential, then sky's the limit.
I just think when it comes down to, there's such a low barrier to enter when it comes to building these platforms or being like a web-based application, that it's just going to be so individualized. There's going to be a sports card trading community that has its own app and its own site. There's going to be everything, and it's not going to be Facebook. It's going to be I want to go look at whatever my interest is. I'll go specifically to this app, and then when you're done with that, you can go over there, and then you could really curate your day, as opposed to a bunch of jargon, mess full of nonsense. Because what I figured is there should be a better way to have your interests be displayed to you, and not in a feed manner, whereas it's coming from a bunch of guys that you might know, but you don't really have the same interests and stuff with. Basically, we're trying to find a way to like a customizable board with like 14 different links that you might be interested in. And they're all different types of content, and just have a different way to different way to curate, different way to display, rather than that feed, because that feed thing, I don't like it, because it's endless, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, what if we just did, here are the 14 best things that you could be putting into your head at this given moment, and whether it be self-help, or news articles or cool history things. But like, these are stuff that it would either release endorphins in your mind because you find it interesting, inspiring, or whatever, but just attempt to do that as opposed to all the nonsense. I just think there's all these cool platforms that you could build that it wouldn't cost you too much to do. So it's like, why the hell not, And there's a lot of people who'd be very excited to do something alongside this. Like, and it's just like, you can go out, especially with the advent of the internet. Like, I was living in my buddy's closet while a bunch of frat kids are ripping blow in the other room. And I'm just like on a meeting with like 8 Chinese kids getting stuff done. And so you can make whatever happen if you have that desire.
I think that's the kind of the key thing that you've hit on there, because while I agree, there is a lot of endless shit on these platforms, it's up to the individual. I mean, a lot of the people that I know of that decide to sort of live their lives that way in an endless sort of sea of consumption, they choose to live it that way. When people start to like choose to do things like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn right now, but like, if you take like this podcast, content creating, that's something I wanted to do. When I started doing that, I realized how much work is involved in that. And that's the thing. When people see the work, they're like, oh, no, I just want to sit and consume. I don't want to work. And the thing is, they don't realize what they're missing out on. And like you say, I've done it as well. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. Yeah, I tend to kind of consume things that aren't necessarily good for my brain when I'm tired.
Yeah.
Energy, read, do productive things, listen to music, listen to different things that are going to ignite your brain, because a lot of people are forgetting that, every time you just sit there and consume, you're essentially letting your brain rot, because you are a living organism. Everything in you is living. So by that logic, if you don't feed it like a plant, then it's going to die. We all die one day, but you'll live longer and be more enriched if you actually feed yourself with information and knowledge. And it's inspiring. I can't believe that people spend all their time just consuming crap these days when so many amazing things are going on. Like, this is a crazy time to be alive. Just look at what's happened in the last year or so. It's like, I was waiting this month for something to happen. I was like, what's going to be the thing? What's going to, because nothing's happened. And then boom, on time, stock market. That's what this month will be remembered for.
Yeah. And then just kind of like remaining passive. It's people that act as if like, oh, having to get going and it's just this feat and it's extremely difficult. I'd say the opposite. When I wasn't meeting my full potential, when I was just in undergrad, just sitting around, just following the words of others or just running through the motions, I was so miserable. And when you realize that like you're not actualizing your full potential, you just feel terrible. You feel terrible about who you are or who you aren't. And just knowing that there's just this much greater version of you out there that you could be. And then once you start pursuing that, even if you have been slacking off in the past, it just feels you've got the right mindset and it feels good to be heading in the right direction. When you're stagnant and passive, you just start to fall apart. But when you start building, you start building yourself too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because I've had the same thing. For me, I've kind of learned that like if you're putting your time into things that you're really passionate about, and I know it sounds really obvious and cliche, but it's true. I've worked in many jobs over the years, even in marketing, and I thought, well, maybe this is as good as it gets. And then when I started doing this, I love this. Even when there's something like, oh, I'm not really a big fan of editing, but you know what? I really like talking to people and doing this and creating content, and I never get sick of it. And I'm like, right, so that's the key. When you find something that you never get sick of and you wake up in the morning, you think, I love this. That's the key. But as you say, a lot of people are following the words of others, following all the things they think they have to do. I mean, I had it when I was at university. First year, I remember looking around maybe it was second year, I don't know. But I remember looking around the lecture hall and just seeing everyone there and just thinking like, I'm not like any of these people. I mean, yeah. I have a vague interest in this, but their life is that they'll go work for some corporate company, go from place to place, and that's their life. And they'll constantly be sort of chasing the dollar and sort of doing the whole fake it till you make it bullshit. And I just can't relate to that. I can't sit in a job interview and pretend like, oh, hey, I'm this person and la, 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 la. And it's like, no, I got to be me. And that means saying what I really think. Like, for instance, I've been doing that in the past year. I'm just really brutally honest over the phone when people call me. So whether that's a job recruiter or, recruitment specialist, or maybe even the head of an organization. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to do your assessment. Okay. I have a whole website, and I'm just being honest here, guys. I have a whole website with a portfolio of all my work. If you want to work with me, look at that. Here's the link.
Click the link.
Click the link. See if you like it, right? I'm not going to do your stupid test or assessment. Don't waste my time. You know why? Because I see time as equally as important, if not more, than money. That's the thing.
It is more important.
You have to value your time. This is why I get really serious about things like being on time, being punctual, because I look at it as like, it's not just my time, it's this person's time. So I'm not going to waste their time because time is important.
And it's a one-way street when it comes down to it. You can sell your time, but you can't buy it. You can get some stuff like alleviated from your schedule and have other people do it. but no amount of money is going to buy you additional seconds here on Earth. And it's like, we have limited time. There's a million ways to make money. Why not do what you love?
Exactly. Let's move it forward. Do you, other than the ones that we've discussed, obviously, because you've sort of outlined this potential cryptocurrency style organization or blockchain organization that you're going to do, but do you have any other companies or investments that you're considering for the future? If so, what are they? Ones you can talk about. Obviously, you don't have to be completely,
One thing I'm super excited about is just a non-traditional way to raise funding and just a different means to do so. I just think that it's so nonsensical when it comes to, raising funds, making pitch books and whatnot.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff is, it's entirely non-mathematical, because it comes down to just people are buying into stories. And a lot of the time, what happens is they buy, 30 companies and one of them pays off. But I figure, if these venture capitalists can do this, why can't the individual do this? But why can't the individual do this on a smaller basis? But we can do this with a larger, like you were talking about with the Robin Hood Pikers. I don't believe that they were really the cause of the run up right there. There's probably some big money that's involved as well. But basically, they did start it. They got the conversation going, and so you realize that stuff like that's powerful. So there's two different ways to make things happen. You can either, have a huge amount of force at once, or you can have a bunch of small forces acting simultaneously, then you'll get somewhere. So basically, say a mom and pop shop is going out of business and they're like a movie theater. You can buy a portion of equity in this company that will entitle you to a certain amount of goods and services each month. So say you buy $1,000 and you get 1% of this movie theater. Well, now every month you get a certain amount of tickets for free as an owner, or something like that. We're just thinking about creative means, because you can avoid taxes that way and like other stuff like that. And the way just to decrease inefficiencies that arise when it comes with, someone else's hand is in your pocket. They're trying to get a percentage of your earnings. So trying to go away from money and back to the kind of not the barter economy, but like everything that you'd use, you would be a partial owner in, and that way you can get basically your cash flow wouldn't be cash flow, but it would entitle you to certain benefits. And so it's just like an interesting thing. Like you said, it's a highly regulated industry. That's why I haven't really broken ground on it. We're looking to kind of get people who've had experience in the fintech, and then get people who are experienced when it comes to blockchain. So, those are two really hot industries. So it's hard to find people who are experienced and looking for things to do in those domains. But, over time, everything's possible. And I really haven't been having too many conversations on this topic, but I should. And I know if I spent one day doing it, I would have found the guy already. And it's stuff like that,
What are the biggest lessons? Say that again.
I said those blockchain developers are weird though. They always got some weird anime LinkedIn profile. It's like anime. And you're like, damn it, like you're probably really good at what you do, but you probably don't care about money. And I don't understand your motivations. But like over time, I'm gonna figure them out. Like maybe it is just to build cool shit, or maybe. But like a lot of these times, man, these guys are as non-traditional as it comes. So that's what I love. That's why. But part of the big reason is just like people. Being around people, building with people, and I'd love to explore. Maybe it is a freedom-based platform when it comes to social media. I've had people in my family approach me saying, listen, man, you got to fucking do this because the censorship's unreal. Actually, on Facebook, you're talking about your censorship on Google. I got censored on Facebook. A Thomas Paine quote that was not even that it wasn't revolutionary. It was just like him talking about, like, he's basically like all mankind are my brethren. To do good is my religion. And like, the whole world is my country or whatever. And Zuckerberg removed that post and said it was flagged as against their community standards. So it was just kind of interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, and then that angered me. And so when people do things that frustrate me, I like to respond by building cool things and kind of, solving these problems. And, solving a problem like that is going to be tremendously difficult, but it's worth it. And then if you have that in your mind and you know that it's worth it, you can literally do anything. That's why guys like Elon Musk are going to take us to Mars, because he knows that's the only way humans are going to survive. So we get off this planet. The sun's going to explode. All of humanity is going to be extinct unless we get off this planet and we get out of this solar system. And the first step is Mars. So when you have a problem that you need to solve, like when it comes down to censorship of big tech censorship, government censorship, and the individual. Like if we put in our minds that freedom of speech is going to die unless we do something about it, we're gonna make crazy shit happen, and that's what it comes down to. You have certain ideals in your head, and it has to be a moral thing. You can't say I'm gonna build this thing simply because I want fame or I want money, because guess what? That shit is, in your heart that is all irrelevant and it's all arbitrary, and you're not gonna bleed. You're not gonna trade your life for something like that, because if I were to do that, I'd be a banker, right? Like, and it's just like, and I think it's like, it's just like, it's not about the money. It's about building cool shit and, changing the way people do things and fixing the problems in the world. And there's a lot of problems. So people act like, oh, every business has been taken. Like, no, there's not, because that means that every problem's been solved. There's so many problems in the world. There's an infinite amount of businesses that can be created because there's an infinite amount of human error. And that might be decreased as we automate things, but there's going to be other industries that come up, and keep your eyes open. I was that guy too. I was like, what the hell? All the good things have been done, and until I came across something that was unexploited, and you just run it.
Yeah, that's the way you have to do it. I mean, it makes me concerned about my particular trajectory right now, because the one thing I've sort of discovered about this podcast is that I like to have the kind of deep discussions with people, particularly like we're having now, where it kind of goes into the weeds and you find yourself talking about all sorts of things and maybe talking about more taboo subjects. And that's the problem. Yeah. Like, I could just run one of those podcasts that's sponsor friendly and, that say all the right things, do all the right things. But what would be the point? Like, why should people listen to that? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I look at people like Joe Rogan who are able to talk about whatever the fuck they want. And I'm like, well, so it's a position thing. It has nothing to do with, really like censorship. It's more about they're trying to censor people they don't want to sort of get to the top. They don't, you know what I mean? And once you get to the top, it's like they can't silence you.
Support in the world. Yeah, that's how it is.
I think that's one of the reasons why he moved to Spotify, not just about the money. I mean, like it's interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but his stuff has actually been pulled from YouTube now. And I don't know if that's because of the deal or what that's because of.
I heard the Alex Jones stuff was like the first, right? They started with that of last year. They pulled like the Alex Jones podcast, and then they
blocked him from the platform, to be fair. So, well, again, I don't agree with that. I do understand it, at least. I think, and that's the problem. It's like it forces you to go elsewhere, and it kind of pisses me off really with my podcast, because it's like, this isn't even really that controversial as a podcast. I mean, I just interview people.
Yeah, and it wasn't even his like platform.
Yeah.
He was being a guest, right? So it's like, you're gonna say this person doesn't have, this is a guest I don't like, I'm gonna take them down. Like, that's not right. I don't care what you disagree with. When it comes down to it, people should be able to choose to watch what they want to watch. And if they're consenting to watch this stuff, then let them sit down and watch it. Let them consume the content and let them come to the conclusions themselves. You shouldn't be making decisions for other people. You shouldn't be saying that they are not allowed to watch this content. It's deemed too dangerous. That is Orwellian as Orwellian can be.
Well, the thing is, like, society changes and things just become unacceptable anymore. So if you take like racism as an example, now don't get me wrong, there's many countries, many places where racism is still tolerated, let's put it that way, and but most of the world isn't like that. And generations have passed by, and now our generation is like, what the fuck? And challenges it. And that's the thing, like, if you're like a racist now in 2021, I mean, you're kind of screwed. Like, what do you do? I mean, you can't be openly racist, and because it's seen as hateful. And
you run for president. That's what you do.
But yeah, it's a good point. It's like you should be free to say what you want to say, but at the same time, like, it's going to get you in shit if it's not something that like everyone kind of is agreeing.
And that's the freedom of choice, and that's what I love it. It's like, you
can
have the consequences, and everyone's responsible for the consequences of their action. And it's like, you realize that, and then we're golden. Everyone agrees that, say whatever you want, but the results of those words might come back to bite you in the ass. And it's like, well, so long as we're cool on that, it works for me. And I think basically just doing away with individual freedom is the course we've been on over the past 20 years. And, coming through Common Core education in the schooling system, they're trying to pacify us. They don't want us to know what our forefathers had done or what the great men in history had done to fight back against the tyrants. They didn't talk about the atrocities of collectivism. Not one bit, not in the slightest. And it was so scary to see, because now I saw these kids leaving and they're going into their undergrad, and it was like, well, these kids don't know. They don't know the slightest a bit about anything when it comes down to, the horrors of collectivism and what happens when governments get too much power, because the government was in charge of their education and they decided that, oh, this is, we would rather have, the volume of a pyramid be shared. And it's like, well, I think what's more important is having a solid basis of people that understand the value of liberty and understand what it took to get here, and understand that if we give this up, there's really no place left to go.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, it's always about what fits the agenda, really, isn't it? That's what education has and has always been. I mean, if you grew up in the UK, I mean, it's not that we kind of glamorize our history in the sense that we're perfect, but we sure as hell don't actually go into the details of like what actually happened and say like what the empire actually looks like in terms of, what was done to facilitate that. It's a very kind of, how do I put this? I can't find the word. It's like it's not exactly presented the way things actually happened. It's a very kind of like,
you got a skewed narrative.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, exactly. But every country has that. Like I remember having an argument with an ex-girlfriend one time about I think it was like Soviet Union or something like that, because they didn't properly teach us that at school. And in the UK they teach it and they go on and on and on and on about the Nazis, like Nazis bad, socialism
that's
bad.
Exactly it. They'll say
But that's the thing. When they talk about the Soviet Union, they go, well, they were communists, which is bad, but they were our allies in the war, so that's good, and that's it. And then they go, well, hold on a second. And I remember having a massive argument with this ex-girlfriend about this, and she said, watch this fucking documentary. So I watched that. And then I was like, oh. And then I remember going to her country and seeing like history museums, documentation, God knows what, talking to people that actually lived it. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then I found out that the Soviets actually made like the Nazis look like Teletubbies by comparison. If you look at the numbers and the years and years and the how they divided up Europe and all of these different things, it's like so much worse. If anything, the Nazis just based their model on what the Soviets did, down to every T. Even like not many people know this, but extermination camps. They actually, I think they were either built by the Soviets or they took the building plan of what the Soviets used and used that to build their own extermination camps. But people, that's the thing, they don't teach us in school.
And they do that for a reason, because basically they don't want to push back against that narrative, against the socialist narrative, because it's just something that they've been pushing for the past while. And if you see it, like the fact that Bernie Sanders was sitting up front and center at inauguration, a guy who advocates for theft and like the decrease of freedom, and he's sitting there and they blow him up. They're, oh, look how cute he is. When an evil man that he's wearing mittens advocating for the death of liberty, and he's blasted upon every single, like that sets a terrible precedent for this like the fact that he's sitting front and center. It's scary. And the reason why they didn't push against this is because they've been pushing this narrative for a while, and they don't like those who do. They want to have, a working class that they rule over, and that's why they're pushing for everyone to be equally miserable. That's why socialism and collectivism is still being talked about today, even though we know the results. We know that it's going to end up with mass poverty, starvation, people killing each other, but people still advocate for it. And is it like, why is this? Well, I don't really know. And it's like these big platforms, these they're all leftist. They're all looking for the same goal, like Google, Facebook, Amazon. I don't really know about Apple, but Google, Facebook, Amazon, if they could overnight, they would install a socialist regime in the United States government. And if they could, they would have people control every aspect of American life. And so just knowing that, and knowing that you have to be able to push back against this, not only corporate, but it's the government when it comes down to it. The government's the one that's enforcing the will of the corporation. So it's like, if you're gonna vilify anyone, don't vilify the corporations, because they're just, doing their duty. They're pursuing the best value for their shareholders. Vilify the government who allows that to happen, who allows themselves to be bought out. And it's not the guy who's bribing people, it's the guy who's taking bribes. That's his fault,
So I have a basic understanding of American politics, but if I've understood correctly, Bernie Sanders is a member of the Democratic Party. Is that correct?
Yeah, so he's an unaccomplished. Basically, what he's done, he's made a life of basically pointing fingers at people who've done things and saying that they've, taken from others, or they've exploited the working class. So he's never accomplished anything himself. He's never actually held a job, but he advocates for the redistribution of wealth. He's just a classic collectivist. He's just looking to take the rights and individual freedoms away from the people, and have everyone be equally miserable. And he ran for office. He ended up pulling an exit scheme when Hillary took the nomination from him, and he ended up endorsing Hillary. So basically, Hillary stole the nomination from him in 2016, and he ended up stealing a bunch of money from his supporters, and then people continued to support him. And he just kind of pulled a bunch of these schemes over and over again, and he advocates for collectivism. And it's really gross, because you see a lot of these Bernie bros and these Bernie girls, and they're all undergrads at liberal schools, because they don't, they've never been in the real world. They don't know what it's like to actually have to work and earn and create. They think that, a check from dad can go pay my next semester, and then I'm good. And they think that money just comes out of the ether, and they don't understand the value of production or the necessity of production. They think that they can just create more wealth by taking it from others. And it's a scary thing, because, a bunch of those guys band together and they start demonizing these people. They'll try to, if you read the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, it's about just the collectivization of the Soviet Union and how they were coming for everyone that, even if they were just having a conversation like this, we would be thrown in the Gulag. We would be in Siberia in a 20-foot hole, and these guards would piss and shit on us. And it's like, that could very well happen. It could very well happen again. And people act as if that it can't. And they'll actually kind of like mock you. They'll say like, oh, you're crazy or whatever. And it's like, okay, I'm crazy. And that might be the case, but it's the truth. Like, when it comes down to it, these people are, and then when it comes down to, when you see like what people are capable of doing, like when humans are just looking around them and following the status quo, that's where evil comes into play. Because you see people that are just doing their job committing acts of evil because the guy next to him is also doing it. And people act like this stuff can't happen. It could very well happen in the UK or here in America, and I could see it happening. And it's like, we got to have the right people fighting the fight, pushing back against this, because there's going to be a time where it is the death of liberty, and you truly can't do anything without having to worry about repercussions.
Makes me wonder sometimes when we're sitting here having a conversation like this, like how long will we be able to do so for? Makes you wonder.
I think there's certain things that I've said even in school when I was a kid that would have flown 10 years ago that didn't then, because they say, hey, that is too controversial or this and that. It's like, well, there's nothing controversial about freedom. Like, as simple as that. There's absolutely nothing controversial about freedom. And if people are going to say that you're crazy for defending your rights, call me crazy and I'll defend the rights until I die. And it's just like, as simple as that. It's something you have to do. You can't just give them up. Like, you just can't. There's too many reasons to not, and there's too many people have made too many sacrifices for us to just serve this up on a platter to the collectivists. We can't do that. We just simply can't.
Moving it forward, because I feel like we could talk about this forever. Let's talk about your business mind for a second. So what are the biggest lessons you've learned in your career so far?
There's so basically, I was thinking, you can do everything on a handshake deal. And I was like, hell yeah, like you can do it. What's the need for a contract? That's not the case. You can know a guy for 10 years, and the second money gets involved, you figure out what kind of person he is.
That
You
is
know,
so true. Oh my God.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I knew the kid since I was 10 years old, and he was, you know, a kid that I was wrestling with. He ends up stealing from my people directly, like right out of their pockets. I'm like, this is so disgusting. Like
Also,
back in the day,
how
we had
exactly?
our CFO,
Okay.
our chief financial officer was stealing from us, and it was just a sickening situation. So just kind of
God.
learning that's going to happen, but you can't let that impact your ability to trust. Like there's bad eggs, there's terrible people in this world. Even if you give them everything and you hook them up, you build them up from nothing, they'll still find a way to justify taking from you or taking from your people. And you just got to know that that's a thing. It's nothing personal. They're just a bad person. They've got something wrong in their head. They've got evil in them. Maybe they were raised improperly, or they just decided to choose evil. And just knowing that it's nothing personal, you could be the greatest guy in the world and there can still be bad people out after to get you. And just knowing that you just got to keep your head up, keep going, and keep trusting, because trust is everything. You got to trust first for people to trust you. And you can't let that, you can't let someone screwing you. It's like you have a girl who breaks your heart. You can't just close off your heart and be, miserable for the rest of your life. I mean, you could, but the better option is to, run it back one more time, open up and see what's up with the next person. And it comes down to that with employees too. Just knowing that, any one person can do anything, but don't let that establish the precedent for others. You can't be judging all people based on one, and just knowing that there will be bad actors, and you got to flush them out of your system sooner rather than later. And as soon as you get any degree of traction, the parasites will come, the non-doers. They know they're not capable of doing anything on their own, so they need you. They need a host body. But guess what? Pull that parasite off and then let him go latch onto another host body, because that's what he's going to do. But then that person's going to have to find out this dude's a parasite and get rid of him. And it's basically just knowing that there is bad actors, but there's a lot more good actors than bad actors. And don't let the bad actors spoil the good actors.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I do want to quiz you a little bit more about that situation that you spoke of. Obviously, you don't have to go into specific details, but how did you actually discover that this was happening? I mean,
I got a phone call from a client who was crying, and I was like, "What? This doesn't happen. The clients don't cry."
Okay.
And basically, she goes, "I'm having family over tomorrow. Like, you guys messed up everything." I was like, "Oh my God, I'm terribly sorry. Like, what's going on? Like, what's your name?" And I look her up, and she's not in our system. So I inquire a bit more. I'm like, "So, what? How did you get our like whatever?" And she's like, "Oh," and then I realized the kid was taking the bookings, whether they came from the phone number, deleting the voicemail, or deleting the email, and then selling them to other companies. And so he botched the gig.
Oh,
he tried to steal from us. He got caught. And he just was just a terrible person, man. It was horrible to see. I believe in karma, and he got a little bit of instant karma, which is nice to see. But I don't care about that. All I care about is it was scary because like we had to just throw all our cash flows back together at the last moment, keep people paid. But you see that happen. You see the bad in one person, you see the good come out of others. And we were able to make some great hires. When we got rid of him, we immediately got some great people in, and they've been with us ever since. And I'm happy. I'm happy he stole from us now, and not when we had some real money in the coffers.
I hear that. I get that. Thanks for sharing. What were the biggest challenges in setting up your businesses?
Yeah, people are the challenge. I'd say finding people who can consistently do great work. Even when it comes to me personally, consistently doing great work is hard. And it's hard for anyone. But the organization and kind of getting our systems in line has been the most difficult process. It's been just kind of like having things consistently done and ironed out, because I'm always looking to the future. I'm always just blasting in like I said, I was talking about like 3 different companies right there. And it's just hard to focus on any one thing, let alone a consistent set of things that needs to be done over a period of time. So what I'm doing now is I'm working on hiring up like more of like the managerial side of things, so that they can continue to maintain our relationships and cultivate like the other ones as we build out our stuff, as we build out our team and whatnot. And that it's just hard to focus on maintaining cash flows while building others. So right now I'm getting my people in line to continue to maintain while we build.
Excellent. What would you say are the key things you need to run a successful business?
Yeah, so it's going to be cliche, but mindset, that's number one. You can't do it without your mind. and you can't get up in the morning and solve hard problems, and really you don't get paid until you solve these problems. So basically solving problems for free until there's a certain threshold. But yeah, it's just like having that delayed gratification, being able to do, have a strong willpower, and just knowing in your heart of hearts that, like, everyone in the beginning, everyone and your mother is going to tell you that you're wrong, that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, you should follow a more traditional path. But just knowing that they're wrong and knowing that you're capable will get you to where you need to be. Yeah,
absolutely agree. That's often the way I feel about what I do, because people always ask me the same thing. They're like, oh, do you have sponsorships? How much do you get paid? Or how many subscribers do you have? Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, look, this is like the music industry, like any other industry. Everything you do in the beginning, you don't get paid anything. That's just the way it works.
Yep.
And then after time, you do get money. And like maybe you'll get a lot of money. Maybe it will be over a period of time. Who knows? We all have different trajectories, but it will come, as you say, with the right mindset, the right attitude, and the will. A lot of people just give up, like halfway through. And I see this a lot. I've mentioned this before on the podcast. So sorry for beating a dead horse here, but my listeners will know that I've spoken about how many podcasts I've seen where they get 20 or 30 episodes in and then they just give up, or they just stop making episodes. And I'm like, why? Like, why have you stopped? And I get it. It's they want to see that return, and it's just not coming. Yeah. But the reality is these things take years.
There's a million reasons to quit. There's a million reasons to never start. And there's only one reason to do. So you got to have a good reason. It can't just be, I want to look good in the eyes of others, or I want a lot of money. You got to have a good sense of purpose, and your heart will carry you there. Honestly, I work with my mind, I work with my mouth, but really I work with my heart. Like, being able to empathize with others and just knowing that they're human and that they all have individual goals, and just knowing that you can help them on their mission, figure out what they want out of our limited time here on earth, and then figure out how you can help them actualize their goal. And guess what? They're going to help you actualize yours. And if you can do that for a bunch of people, you're gonna have something crazy real soon.
Absolutely. Here's a deep one. I've started asking my guests this recently, but it always gets a bit of a different response. What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Yeah, it's a hard one, and it's one that people don't like. It's basically, there's certain things that no matter how hard you try, no matter if you do everything right, they just won't manifest. They just won't come across your plate. And it's just like, whether it be, unrequited love or whatnot, there's certain things that you shouldn't chase. There's certain things that should just come to you naturally. And I'd say that is my biggest life lesson. It's just knowing that like, as a creator, it's easy to fall into the mindset of like, yes, I can do anything and I can make it happen just by my sheer force of will. But there's just certain things that you can't do, like when it comes down to stuff that's based on randomness, or stuff like that. Like, it's just like I applied to a few schools just to see what's up. And they go, oh no, you're not our type or whatever. And a month later, I've got these guys, they're not just graduates, not just masters, but PhDs at this school working for me for free remote. And it's like, wow. Okay, like what this admission board, obviously, and then so it's easy to say like, oh, I got rejected here. That means I wasn't good enough. But it just means that you're not, you don't fit in their box, or you don't fit in their template, and or whatever. So maybe you don't get the job. Maybe you're literally 40 times more qualified than every single other applicant, but maybe the interviewer just didn't like the way you looked at them, or maybe it was like,
it's true.
The way you woke up in the morning, and it's just not on you at all. But when it comes down to it, maybe you didn't get the sale because someone else who's blood related to him got it, and it's nothing you did wrong. But it's just the fact of the matter is that sometimes things won't go your way, and you just have to roll with it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now with my job situation. I think I've just realized like I'm probably not going to return to full-time employment because that's just not what's in the cards for me. And I'm totally fine with that because I don't want to do that anymore. But what I am interested by is that every company I've applied for in the past year, like the way I see it is they're just not willing to take a risk, right? And the thing is, it's exactly how you said it. It's like you're trying, when you let's be real, when you're trying to find someone to work for you, the first thing you do is look internally. That's what every company does. If you do find someone externally, what you're looking for is essentially someone who has the right charisma, someone you can have banter with, chemistry. That's what you're looking for, the right attitude. It doesn't fucking matter if they've got this much experience. I mean, for certain jobs, yeah, okay, you do need the experience, blah, blah, blah. But for most jobs, particularly corporate level, business related, you just need to have the right attitude, and that's something I do have. I can confidently say that, and that's why I just laugh at it. I'm like, this is jokes. I followed the route. I did everything you're supposed to do. 3 years experience, a degree, and nothing.
And I'm sure you've applied to like positions that you've been like very overqualified for, and you like get a no in response, and you just laugh. Like
yes, the funny one is that a lot of them, they tell me I don't have enough experience, which I get a real pop out of. I'm like, well, how much are you looking for? How much is necessary?
Like, what? Like, how are you making any hires? How is anyone with like the experience you're asking still at this like point in their career? I don't know. But like for me, like I don't ask for anything. What I ask, if it's something like someone's gonna be a core team member interacting with me on a weekly basis, what I do is I just go 30-minute Zoom call and I talk to them and I say, you know, what have you been up to recently? What's your story? Those 2 questions will give me everything I need to know and to decide whether or not I want them on my team.
Yeah, and that's how it really is. I mean, it kind of blows one thing I learned recently, actually, someone taught me this, which I think is very important to say. Human resources has become such a major part of businesses now, especially major businesses. It's not very common for business owners like yourself to kind of actively be involved firsthand with the interview process. A lot of companies, especially in the UK, will either have a third-party recruitment service do all the stuff for them, or they'll have that HR department within their organization handle it. But here's the thing. What you're saying is, right, go find me an applicant, here's a bit of information, right? And they'll whittle that down. They'll do a lot of work for you, but they're choosing the candidates for you, not you. And that means you're rarely going to find the right person. And here's another thing, because they do that, they skip out on the people that would actually be right for the role in favor of like, oh, this person has this much experience, this person has worked on X amount of projects. But you know what? That doesn't matter. I've worked with people in the past who, I worked with someone who had like 20 years experience in their field, and they were intimidated by me. By me, a guy who at the time, I think I had like a year and a half experience. And I just thought to myself, this is so fucking stupid. Like this, I mean, maybe this is just corporate politics. I don't know. It could be a million different things, but that's the way I saw it. Like I was very ambitious. I'm like that sort of type of person when I'm in an organization. And it's one of the things that made me realize, like, for the most part, I either need to be working with people as in B2B, or I need to just be running my own thing. Because working for people, if they don't have the right attitude and they're just like, I find a lot of companies are very closed-minded, you know, obviously not companies, but the people working in them, they're unwilling to take risks. They want to do it this way. And it doesn't matter if maybe this way is wrong, and you tell them, okay, this is what's going to happen if we do it like this. And they're like, let's do it like this. And it's like, well, do you really want to do it like this? This way is going to lose you money. This one's going to be a waste of time. And they're like, no, do it like this. Well, I have this idea. What if we do this? No, do it this way. And then we do it that way. And then 6 months later, they're like, if we'd have done it the way you suggested, it would have worked. And it's like, well, of course it fucking would have worked. Because like I told you 6 months ago that this way wouldn't work. And everyone agreed. And we had several meetings about, sorry, I'm just ranting at this point. It's just, it's frustrating.
There's some guy who's the hot shot on top who thinks that since he makes the last decision, he knows more than everyone else. It's like, the one thing that I know for certain is that I don't know shit. Like what I know is my people, and that's it. I don't know what they know, and we come to them for their expertise. And why would we have them around if we didn't? You know.
I think didn't Steve Jobs say something similar to that one time? He said like,
there's
no point. Yeah, it's like no point having a room full of like people who all know the same thing or something like that. Like it'd be pointless. Like you need people.
It's like exactly. Yeah. He's got some great anecdotes. You know, that's someone who changed basically I've only started doing stuff with my life this past year. I'm 20 years old. Until very recently I haven't done anything. And I read the Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson biography, and that was so profoundly impacting because I was 19 at the time, and it began when he was 19, and that's when Apple began. And I just remember just kind of connecting with his story, and it was super emotional. It was one of those books. I've got extreme ADHD. Being able to talk to you for 2 hours is good, because it's been an engaging conversation. But most things I can't focus on for more than 13 minutes, especially books. I can read maybe 5-6 pages at a time, and then I'll revisit the book. Actually, right over there, I've got maybe like this. I think there's 12 books that are half read right there, and then there's a whole bookshelf of other ones. And basically, my mind span or attention span is just not that strong. But the Steve Jobs, Walter Isaacson, 694 pages. I sat down and I read it in one sitting because it was so profoundly impacting. And I would recommend that to everyone. Read that book if you're trying to do something different than the rest of them. You know what I mean?
Awesome, man. You describe yourself as an objectivist. Explain.
Yeah. So basically, objectivism, for anyone who is in the kind of libertarian sphere, it's a form of philosophy founded by Ayn Rand in one of the 40s and the 50s. And she's a very interesting story. She came here from Russia. Her name was Alice Rosenbaum, and she didn't speak English. And then she came over here to America, came to Hollywood, became a best-selling author in English, and it was amazing. And she was just very freedom-oriented. And basically, the philosophy of objectivism, basically states that you are the center of all your problems. Everything that's wrong in the world or in your life, you're the direct center you're the common denominator of all your problems. And so being able to use rationality and reason to guide you out of, sticky circumstances, and just knowing that everything could be reasoned. That's something that's super powerful, because a lot of people think, oh, like what can I do? What can I do? And there's nothing I can do, and it's all in someone else's hands, and they kind of try to displace the blame, or they try to, say it's because of some unnatural event or a mystic or a godly thing. But just knowing that you can find the root of all problems, you can just, iron it out, and then use your mind to rationally go over the most effective solution, and just knowing that you can really accomplish anything with reason, then you can go ahead and make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I used to be, it's not exactly the same thing, but like I used to be a massively negative person, fearful of everything, blah, 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 blah. When that sort of life change occurred and my mind changed, because that's the thing, a lot of people don't realize, like, it's not just about changing circumstances in your life. You need to change the way that you think, because when you do that, not only do you start to change circumstances within your life, but you change the way you approach things, the way you think about things. See, a lot of the time, the things in your life don't necessarily change as far as, like, the things that are offered to you, blah, blah, blah. But your perception, right, your approach to them, the way you see them is everything. I mean, that's, for example, the reason that negative people always just never achieve anything, stay in the same circle of sort of denial or self-deprecation or whatever, because they can't see beyond that. They can't see that, oh, hey, maybe there's an opportunity. Like, here's a really very brief example. What I'm trying to explain badly. If you see an opportunity come towards you, a negative person will look at that and go, it probably won't work. Maybe this will happen. I'll have to spend money and time, and then this, and then. Whereas if you're a positive person, and a lot of people think that being a positive person is just being like, hey, and jumpy and bubbly, and yay, everything's great. No, being positive isn't about being like that. Being positive is looking at an opportunity and going, okay, what if this would happen? Maybe this could happen. Here's 50 different scenarios that could happen as a result of this. This could lead to something better. It's just about changing the way that you think. And I think that's something that all of us could probably really benefit from, I think. It's a fear thing. When you're trapped in that circle, it's very difficult to get out. It took me years to get to this point. And I would only say in the last probably 3 years did that change actually occur.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes time, man. It takes time.
Yeah, I think I was exactly in that kind of similar circumstance, like responding to because I was like, having to go through the motions of others, go through the Common Core education, and just being pretty miserable with that, and just kind of knowing that, the trajectory I was on was to go to school and, get a job, work for some schmuck. And I was just so negative. And it was like, once I was able to, get out from under that and have the freedom to, actually go and grab onto opportunities, it lights you up, and it makes you kind of realize that once your life's in your own hands, it's up to you to go pursue whatever it is you want. And the world's out there for the taking, and, might as well go grab what you want, because if not, you'll just stay stagnant. And I'd rather be moving.
What are the best and worst things about Chicago?
Well, the best thing about Chicago, I'd say, is the people. The worst is the politicians and the weather.
Of course,
but
yeah.
I love the people out here.
You a big wrestling fan? Fan of professional wrestling?
No, I don't know anything of that sort.
No, it's just Chicago is quite well known for that. But yeah, well, there's a lot of things that the Chicago
really?
is known for, isn't it? It's professional wrestling.
What is Chicago known for in the UK? What is because I don't know what generally the perception of Chicago is, on a world.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the UK specifically. I just, in general, I'd say Chicago, obviously the Windy City. It's known for its for that. It's known for professional wrestling, wrestlers like CM Punk. I mean, maybe that's more of a wrestling specific industry thing. It's just one of those towns that's just known as very popular for it. Pizza, Chicago town pizza is a big thing. Other than that, I'm trying to rack my brains now. Maybe the musical Chicago, I don't know.
Yeah, some good blues and jazz scenes from back.
Yeah, of course. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's basically, I guess, like the biggest things are like the whole like mafia stuff with Al Capone and bootlegging that had some good influence on the culture out here. But yeah, we don't have too many like iconic things. But there's a few, But I think over time, people are either gonna get the hell out of here, or people are gonna like be flying over here. And it's going to be interesting to see. It comes down to leadership, and we don't have many great leaders here in Chicago. So it's just like, when the cool thing is, if you are a good leader, there's a lot of opportunity, because there's just, we need good leaders. So
when it comes to sort of the COVID-19 pandemic, how has it affected you? How's it been in Chicago? How has it changed your life? Especially, from what I understand, you've set up this business in the last 3 months. So you've set it up during COVID-19. So I can see how it would work and how you could achieve it. But, how has it actually affected your life and your business?
Yeah, basically, it's allowed us to get a lot of great talent off the bat. People are all looking for opportunities, looking for stuff to do. And we were able to give them, remote opportunities available right away. So rather than them pissing off 80 applications, to say, hey, listen, man, hop on Zoom with me and we'll start building right now. And then you can use them. We were able to place some people, and it was so powerful because, we had some guys that were going to some great places, and just especially during COVID, no one else was getting hired, but we were getting people hired away. And that just felt awesome, because we were able to take people with no experience, give them a little bit of experience, and then they can go on to the next step in their life. But then they call me up 3 weeks later. Hey, Xander, I love you. I never gotten that from anyone who wasn't family or like a long-term friend. I've only known that guy for a month, but I'm like, that was powerful, because now he's doing commission sales for commercial water condensers, making a massive commission, and apparently he's doing really well. So it's just like stuff like that feels great. And there's nothing that feels better than that. Like, quite honestly, like when you're able to like hook someone up like that, it's just awesome. It's so awesome.
But how has sort of the pandemic affected everything as far as like getting things done, or maybe barriers and stuff like that? Like,
there's more talent available, higher quality talent available.
Because they're restricted, right?
Yeah, you can do anything really right now, because there's just so much idle workforce. And that's something that we've done with work service. We've been able to utilize the underutilized. So those undergrads that, maybe their internship fell through, or the graduate students or people who are just graduating who don't have a job. And it's just like being able to kind of provide, opportunities to people that are capable, like totally capable. It's just that the other opportunities aren't available due to the present circumstances. And being like a all remote company, it's, we didn't have to have that same expenses of an office that we're not using or anything. So it was nice being able just to continue the course while so many others had been so disrupted.
Awesome. And as we draw things to a close today, do you have any upcoming projects or maybe some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I'm out here producing content every once in a while. I throw stuff on my Instagram stories, like just small videos that I take myself. So if you're interested in some little anecdotes or some insights here and there, XanderKaz, that's where you can find me. I'm most active there and on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to say a massive thank you for agreeing to be on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning about your company and yourself. I've had a lot of fun here. So big thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be on.
And for everyone listening to the Christian Reeve podcast, as always, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, I've actually gotten around to putting this all on Facebook because maybe people don't know I do this all myself. It takes a long time to sort of set everything up, but all of the podcast episodes are available on Facebook as well. So whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, or whatever the case may be. If you're listening on Spotify, we actually got a review on Apple Podcasts, my first ever review for the podcast. So that's amazing. But I want to encourage everyone listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to it. I think there's 10 different platforms we're on now. Leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the podcast, what you like, what you dislike. Give us a rating. Just let me know. And let me know who you would like to see on the podcast in the future or potential topics you'd like to see us talk about in the future. Let me know. My DMs are open. I'm always listening. Thank you very much for watching the Christian Reeve podcast or listening to the Christian Reeve podcast. And until next time, peace out. One love. I'll see you in the next one.